quorum and everybody's here. I guess our next agenda item is just approval of the agenda. So if the committee is the Community Economic Development Committee does approve the agenda, do I have for March 20th, do I have somebody who could put the motion on the table? Thank you, Brian. And all in favor? Opposed? We're good. Excellent. Great. Then moving on, adoption of the minutes. The minutes of January 31st, the Community Economic Development Committee meeting. And hopefully we've had a chance to take a look at those minutes and recommendation that we approve those minutes.
I was just wondering, on page 6 of the agenda, in terms of the draft minutes, under the subcommittee, the proposed subcommittees, we have some question marks in terms of the short-term rental policy and the official community plan. I think we could probably delete the question marks, as well as in the column to the left. And just under on the same page at the top, I think there's a little typo under Rural Islands Economic Partnership. I think in the last sentence it should be he rather than her. That I move adoption.
Okay, that's amended. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Great. Moving on, public comments. And any public? No public today. So then going on to item number 4, delegations, that we're very lucky here to have Robin Fenton join us today. Hi, Robin.
Hi, everybody.
So Robin is the chair of the Housing Advisory Committee. And, as we know with the Economic Development Committee, these are sort of where the two committees really do, there's some synergies between the two, obviously, for businesses on island. Hard to run a business if you don't have housing, and at the same time for Robin, really spearheading all the different options and initiatives around housing. So welcome, Robin. I'm so happy that you're here today to provide us a bit of an update.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So really the idea behind joining you today is to, as you said, we have overlapping interests when it comes to housing. And so I thought this would be a good chance to tell your committee a little bit about what we're doing and maybe hear a little bit more about what you've done in the past or are maybe actively doing on housing as well. So yeah, just to keep in communication and know what each other's doing. So I think Steph included our work plan in your agenda. So I thought that would be a good place to start just for things that we're planning to do this year. We're looking at a cash in lieu policy, which I'm not sure if you were aware, last year there was a rezoning that happened on island, and to meet the affordable housing policy, an agreement was made for a cash in lieu contribution to the, I'm blanking now, the housing fund. Maybe Liam, why am I?
It's just a housing reserve fund.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. The Housing Reserve Fund. So, it's always looking for ways to get money into that fund. So this was a new thing that happened in the past year. So we'll be looking to support the municipality in creating a draft of a policy that could be used in future. So when other developments happen, the cash in lieu is an option that they can go to. Great. Thanks, Steph. So the next one is a review of the affordable housing policy. The housing policy is, I can't remember, 10, 12 years old, and it's a really good one, but we thought it would be a worthwhile exercise this year to do a review of it, see if it's still current, does it need any changes or updates for the changing times that have happened here on Bowen in the last 10, 12 years. The next one is looking at land use bylaw, which maybe is a little bit boring for this committee. I'm not sure if that interests you, but there is an OCP review happening, which I'm sure you're aware of. And so in line with that, there might be some changes to the land use bylaw, which is essentially, all the rules about what you can build and where and how. So just working and helping staff with updating that along with what's happening on the OCP review, which is obviously the next one, which I'm sure you're well aware of. Cluster zoning was one that we had some traction with last year, which was the idea of creating small groups of housing. So where there might have been one house on a piece of land somewhere around the island, you could create a small cluster of, 4 or 6 or maybe more houses. And the idea being to create diverse housing types, some level of affordability, although, affordable is kind of a loaded term these days. So we did look into that, and we found that it was going to require an amendment to the OCP, which seemed like not a very good use of time if the OCP was being reviewed. So we've sort of switched gears on that one, and we'll be working, hopefully, as part of the OCP process to see if cluster zoning is something we can suggest and bring in. So that will still be happening, but in a slightly different way. And then workforce housing, here we go. I'm early. This was meant to be later, to meet with your committee and just see, if there's opportunities to work together or learn from each other, or if there's anything we can help each other with and support each other. Certainly just information flow is good. I'm trying to think what else I could update you on. Oh, there we go. There's more. So these are items on the radar. Oh, yes. So we have an affordable housing policy, which I mentioned that we're going to be revising. Another thing that some communities have is a housing policy overall. So that's something we might look at this year. May happen, may not, because I think the OCP review might take up a lot of sort of time and energy. So we'll see if that happens. Something that's been on our list for a little while is proactive rezoning and how that might be related. We have put in an application for the Housing Accelerator Fund. I'm not sure if there's been word yet on that one. So either way, even as it says there with the OCP process, that might be a chance. And what we mean by proactive rezoning potentially is much like what happened a number of years ago now on the community land that was eventually subdivided and sold to build the private rental building that's at the, across from the pharmacy, right below the community center. So that was a proactive rezoning that the mayor and council at the time did. So they took a piece of land, proactively changed it to, basically be an apartment building and then sold it. So that's something that could be done, whether it's on municipally owned land or other land, that would then promote different types of housing that might be desirable for the community. And then I think, the Housing Reserve Fund, we talked about that a bit. And one thing I did see on your minutes from last time is the MRDT, which is also on your radar. So that's definitely something that would be an overlap if we just to keep each other in the loop or work together on it. But I believe that that's something that's in the works with staff this year. So it could be interesting to see how our committees might be able to support staff for that, getting that application in. That was all that was on my thoughts to introduce today. I don't know if there's any questions or if there's any other updates I can give.
Jody, get up.
Thank you.
Robert, you had a big announcement yesterday. You're not going to mention it?
Different.
It's a different hat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But it's totally fine. It's totally
Nothing to be
fine.
ashamed of.
Yeah.
Sorry, of course.
No.
I wasn't thinking.
No, that's okay. I mean,
But
this
it's
is I
exciting
chair
news.
the Housing Advisory Committee, and I'm also executive director of Birch, which is the Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing Society. And yes, we're sort of tiptoeing a little bit because we're not supposed to make big announcements without sort of our partners. But of course, it is
That's
public
fine.
news, and it's been it's been published on the internet. And BC Housing made an announcement yesterday about projects that were selected for funding for their community housing fund. And our project on Bowen was selected. So hopefully we'll be able to announce, more details and that's kind of formally soon, but it is public and it is out from BC Housing. So yes, that is very exciting news. So that's a 24-unit apartment building on Miller Road, right next to the health center.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations to
Thank
you
you.
and definitely an advantage for the island to our fortune.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very exciting.
So members of the committee, are there any questions for Robin?
Just one, I happen to read about how Paris, the city, supports so many affordable housing units, and it's because government chose to get into the business of providing housing to keep service workers in the city, even though other rents are going up, and that's been super successful. You probably already heard of that, but I just wanted to bring it up to see, if that's also being thought of. Sounds like it is, but.
I don't know that I know the terrace example specifically, but there's certainly other communities we're aware of, like Whistler and even Tofino and others that have got sort of got the municipal government by way often of a housing authority has gotten into it, into the business of housing, shall I say. And yes, we did address that. I believe it was last September. There was a committee of the whole before council, and I made a presentation and just put together some examples and information on that as to how other municipalities have done it, and we had some suggestions as to how Bowen Island Municipality could move forward with a few different options. So yes, if you have a chance, if you're interested, please go back. I think it was September, the committee of whole, that's September 2023. So yeah, and I think even before that, a while back, there's been some presentations on other things as well. But yeah, it's great to hear terraces doing it as well. It seems to be the way municipalities are heading into what I sort of like to call community housing. I was just chatting to somebody yesterday. A lot of people say affordable housing, but we're almost past that. We actually just need, I'd call it non-market community housing. We need housing that people who live in the community can afford, which are often people who are of, perfectly average income. They aren't necessarily low income people who need subsidized housing. They just need something they can reasonably afford. So the opportunity to create non-market and what I would call community housing, which is what the community needs, is definitely something we're moving towards, both Birch and the Housing Advisory Committee.
That's great to hear. And the city wasn't Terrace, it was Paris, France.
That's what I thought.
Oh, sorry.
Paris, France.
Yeah.
I
did just have my hearing checked.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, great to hear that.
That makes a lot more sense. Sorry, it's just the link here.
Yes.
Question, Robin, anything about co-ops? Are you getting indication about, like we're talking about variety of housing, any indication that the governments will bring back co-ops and support co-ops?
Well, yeah, co-ops are definitely around, and it's something that's on my radar. I haven't heard much about in the last few years, but I also haven't, with COVID, haven't been getting out to those, conferences and everything to hear the updates. So it's something that's on my radar for this year for sure. Another thing that's happening, which is sort of peripheral, I guess, to the Housing Advisory Committee, is some work that we're doing with Tomo Spaces, which is a sort of socially minded developer in collaboration with Birch on Lot 1. So Lot 1 of the community lands, and that's definitely something that's on my radar, is to look into co-ops and if one would be feasible here and what kind of funding is out there. But yeah, we're hoping to let the community know a little bit more soon about what we're kind of doing on Lot 1. It's a year-long project, so we're kind of just getting up to speed, but yeah, we can certainly pass information along. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned co-ops because I think that would be a great housing model here.
Are people clear on Lot 1?
I think that was something we looked at.
Yeah, Lorraine's, someone tell Lorraine.
Thank you. I don't know where Lot 1 is.
It's if you go to the school and start to head down Mount Gardner.
Yeah.
You probably notice if you're going to recycling that they've cleared a bit of space there.
Oh, okay.
That's Lot 1. And so it's designated as mixed use, I think, light industrial, and is that correct? Am I correct?
Well, there's, so Lot 1 starts at the corner of that intersection, goes all the way past the gas station, around the corner towards Killarney Lake.
Oh.
And it's broken into sub areas, and there's different zoning designations for each sub area. And really, if we think about it of its entirety, there's a bit of zoning for everything there. It's the first area from the corner towards the gas station has the most broad zoning, allows for light industrial to housing and commercial.
Oh, okay.
And so that where it literally says Lot 1 on the screen is the area where it's the most flexible zoning right now.
And that's municipal owned land that you're thinking of creating a variety of
Correct.
housing,
Yeah.
light industrial business use.
Correct. Yeah. Right now, there is a project underway that council has directed staff to work with Birch and Tomo. And Tomo is a company that mostly does development projects in the city. But Mark Shea, who is principal with Tomo, lives on Bowen. And so they're collaborating in developing a basically like an implementation strategy for developing those lands. Because they're green fields and there's no infrastructure access to any of those sites, it becomes intimidating for a lot of folks. Because of the base development costs can feel
Right.
pretty prohibitive and challenging.
Right.
So the idea is that Tomo and Birch will be putting together a bit of a plan of like, what are the opportunities, what are the potential development costs, and essentially do some of that upfront work that would help paint a clearer picture for people that would want to come forward with proposals for projects on those lands.
Thanks. Thank you.
Can I ask a related question? Because was a recent pet peeve of mine. That stretch of Mount Gardner does not have sidewalks. And with this recent snowstorm, and then there's a lot of industrial trucks, the buses and stuff like that. So as I'm walking my dog, there's no safe place for us to go. We have to go on the road, and some people driving cars are a little bit more respectful. So when we're doing these developments, are we considering the infrastructure that goes with that besides water and sewer? Are we considering sidewalks and things like that? I know we're doing the multi-use path. So I'm just wondering if that is factored in, because particularly that's the school. And I know when the farmer's market comes in, there's so many cars, like any event at the school, that whole thing, and there's no safe walking area. So I just want to put that out there.
Right. Yeah, those types of things are always in the mix. I don't know that I would necessarily promote sidewalks per se, rather than like a designated path. From a infrastructure investment, capital renewal and replacement perspective, I prefer paths over sidewalks. Sidewalks are expensive assets that are hard to maintain and have a costly replacement value. But those are always in the mix. Something that we also want to factor in, and I'm not sure if it's part of the scope of the study that Birch and Tomo are doing, but it's something that we'd be doing internally here, is looking at, what are some of the development amenities that would come along with any development. And so there's two opportunities for the municipality to ensure that development is providing the necessary level of service that we would expect for those areas. And so there's what's called the development cost charge. And so we're quite a ways from having a DCC bylaw in place for things like roads and sidewalks. But it's entirely within our authority to do that. And then the other one is an amenity contribution. And the province has just come out with some new legislative provisions around amenity contribution charges. And so historically, they've been a practice that has just been conducted by almost all municipalities, where if you're a developer and you're coming and saying you want to develop this lot, we'd say, that's great, but we want a path and we want a playground and we want these things. And that becomes part of the deal. And the province is trying to ensure that there's greater transparency around what those amenity contributions are. And so the preferred approach would be that we'd have all of that identified up front, and we'd have that clearly specified with an actual amount. But you can imagine that that's a significant undertaking in and of itself. And so it may be a while before we get to developing really crystal clear amenity contribution charges and things like that. But we certainly will be, when we're having meetings with developers, like whether that's Bowen Island Properties or John Reed or other people that are making these types of developments, we do look at accessibility and like and things like that too. Yeah.
So that won't be that's not part of like the OCP then. That's totally a plan kind of.
No, I mean, part of the OCP could be saying like, oh, we would like to see increased density in this area over here, and a foundational principle in the OCP planning will be something like, complete compact accessible communities, right? So we want to make sure that, like, if we're doing development, we want to make sure that accessibility is factored into any of the design elements that come out of proposals for that area.
So it's high level, strategic, not prescriptive detail.
The exactly. The OCP is like a guidance document of the vision of where we would like to be as we develop and grow. And then the land use bylaw is more specific. Okay, these are the specific allowable uses and density and those types of things. And then there's the building bylaw, which is like, here's how you're going to build the road. And we expect the road is this wide and it has a curb and it has a sidewalk and those types of things.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Robin. Obviously, there's a lot of work going on with the committee, looking at things from different perspectives, and really appreciate you spending the time sharing with us all of the work that's being done.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And Robin, you're welcome to stay until the end of the meeting, or if you do have to run, that is okay as well.
I probably will run, but I do have a couple of takeaways from today, so that's great. So please do keep in touch if you're moving forward on the MRDT or anything like that. We can definitely liaise on those. And what I also took away from today was the work that I'm doing with Tomo on Lot 1. We should definitely will be back in touch with your committee as well, because you can definitely contribute because of that interesting mix of potential uses on Area 1 of Lot 1. Your feedback could be quite valuable. So we'll definitely come back to you with that in one way or another. So thank you for your time. Yeah, and please do connect if you can see opportunities for us to work together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that.
Okay, great.
Wonderful.
So moving on, item 5, presentation. Martin, your presentation.
Finally.
Finally, here we go. Although I think I've had a sneak peek myself, but really appreciate sort of handing you over the floor to sort of walk through the presentation this morning.
Am I driving?
I was gonna connect from here.
Okay, you can connect.
Let me just make sure I don't
Where you are.
echo issue.
That's here, okay.
Let's see. You just have to let Insta.
Yep, this right, there you go. Recording. Okay. Sat, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself to our new member, Lorraine? Well,
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, nice to meet you. Apologies I can't be there in person. I am on island, but jumping between meetings, so I wasn't able to make it. My name is Sachi Pander. I'm a resident of Bowen Island. And sorry, I'm just a little off guard here, jumping from another meeting and talking about a very different subject matter. So I'm like, all right, where am I? I gotta find my place here. And been on the committee for this is my second term. I co-nectar yoga on the island as well. And I think as we discussed in our last meeting, this is kind of a nice reset for our committee. So it's a great time to join. And I think we have some really good initiatives in front of us here, and look forward to that. So thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
So share the screen. Okay, so it's kind of good that it got delayed so much because I can give you an updated. Is that
Okay, there we go. We're good.
So this is basically a joint work with REAP and Lorraine. I'm not sure if you've heard of REAP, but it's the Rural Island Partnership.
Right.
It's basically a economic development organization for the BC coastal rural community. With relationships to provincial government as well as to many other active organizations within local communities and big chambers of business and so forth. And doing a lot of on the ground work. So there's a lot of programs that actually like provide services for businesses and So really, basically, to get right into it, what I wanted to present today, which we're discussing in the current strategic review, is we want to use readily available data, and this is still being discussed, by the way. Actually, what would be really nice to get your feedback today so I can take it on Friday. We have an all-day session. We're curious how this sounds to you as a key area of REAP, the community of REAP, and would we to engage very actively on this with the committee and support us in this idea. So the idea is to use readily available data from our community economies to map out circular flows within our regional economy. So this relates to a few objectives that are kind of in the mission of REAP, such as waste reduction, green economies, designing shared services, which is a big one, increasing resilience, relational economics, which is a direct relationship to indigenomics, and seeing the multiplier effects. We talk about buy local and local economies. So what are the actual multiplier effects of any dollar that how it circulates? So what I was showing here is actually a simulation. And this simulation, very briefly, was made by taking 10 business profiles across various industries and sectors, and then trying to see within 10 of them with random 3 products or services, how many circular patterns or loops would show up. And you can easily identify at least a few right away. So this kind of speaks to the point that we underestimate how well communities and social networks in general are interconnected. This is, some people colloquially know it as the Kevin Bacon effect, which is essentially that it used to be, when this was, that name was being used, that you were 6 degrees away from anyone on the planet. But that has been dropping more and more. So today on modern social networks, there are a lot of research studies on this. You are probably 2 to 3 hops away from any other person. And the networks are getting denser, and the same applies to supply and demand networks between individuals and businesses and regional economies. So when you go to buy something at a store, you would be surprised how few hops there are to affecting something else you care about that looks unrelated. So this is a simulation, like I was mentioning, but here I will show you what a real network looks like, because this has been done around the world. This is an example with 3,200 companies in Sardinia, in Italy. These are real businesses. This is a real network. And you can see that the network gets quite complex. All that black lines, black stuff in the background are supply-demand relationships. And then you find particular ones of interest. So for a government program or any organization like Project Zero that cares about circular economies, or increasing self-sufficiency in an economy, this is a clear value proposition, because basically this upgrades your circular economy approach from pen and paper, which is pretty much where it's today, to big data computing, when you start to surface this in parallel across all possible interconnection. And that introduces a couple of interesting and in particular features. So one of them is resilience. So if you imagine mapping out so in the middle, we might have an individual or a business in the community. And if you have a system that can surface their circular embeddedness, how well they're connected to circular flows in the economy. And then you further go on to connect that with how well all the other participants in the path are connected. The resilience that you end up getting is that, imagine, for example, a disruption like real estate crash in Florida in 2008, or an oil crisis in the Middle East, or some central bank outside of Canada deciding to change monetary policy. These things we know very well how much they affect us. Yet theoretically, they shouldn't. Because to within a dense regional economy, the only reason why you're affected is because those external factors end up suffocating liquidity in the economic system. That translates to banks. Banks become more cautious and all of a sudden they're not lending as much. And that's how the effect comes in. But we're not getting affected because we are transacting here with oil companies in the Middle East or because we are affected by monetary policy by the Fed or, right? It's all actually indirect to us, yet it makes us fragile and vulnerable. But if we were to have something like this on a regional level, imagine, for example, a business making a loan in a bank, applying, it's 2008, the liquidity has just dried up in the financial system. You're a business and you walk into a bank and you want to apply for a loan. Today, they would look at your standard business proposal. They don't have a direct, especially not explicit, measurable sense of how self-sufficient you are within your regional context. But if you walk in with something like this mapped out for you, showing how embedded you as a business are within the regional economy, then the bank could feel more comfortable about lending decisions. So that's just an idea, of course. Now, this, by the way, the effect on resiliency has been proven in a major economy. This is Slovenia, which is the 34th economy in the world, in the EU. What you see here is in yellow is the GDP growth of the economy every year since 2002. And they've been running a system like this for a few decades. They're actually one of the most on a national level. So this is run by the government. It's called Tetris. It's voluntary. So businesses go in and voluntarily put in their invoices into the system. The system maps out the network of interrelatedness and they can start to clear debts and they can start to actually move economic activity without money. So if Slovenia has X amount of money circulating in the local economy, they can actually do in their case like 110% of X instead of 100% like every other country. And they generate hundreds of millions of euros additional economic activity using this. But the main point here is that look at what happens after 2008 when there is a liquidity crisis in Europe. Exactly when everyone else goes in recession in Europe, their system, which is the red line, kicks in the most there because businesses struggling with banks, struggling with financial institutions, they fall back to this system as backup. The system picks up because it's not related to the conventional monetary flow and basically keeps Slovenia in the positive for half of the term and of course decreases the negative. So this is just that this has been done and there are hard facts about how an approach like this can improve resiliency.
Sorry, can I just ask a clarifying, are we talking about a barter type system here, looking at this?
Not really. It's actually quite different from barter because in barter, if you are this business here, you would have to exchange with, let's say you're transacting, buying supplies from this node here, you would have to transact back with them. So they would have to have something you have, right? There has to be a coincidence of needs.
Yes, yes.
Whereas here, that's not what happens is you are transacting with this party and this party over here, which are totally unaware to you, is transacting with you on the back end.
So I just got thrown off when you said leaving the monetary system and such. That's sorry. You may reference. So, but you're saying they're still paying within the local economy with money.
Yeah, the way you can imagine, like if we take an actual example from Slovenia, imagine that these 1, 2, 3, 4 businesses transacted in the past month. So they have invoices due in 30 days.
Yes.
So normally in the monetary economy, one of them at least would have to have the cash to pay before that propagates to the other invoices and settles, right?
Yes.
With this system, nobody needs to have access to the money in Slovenia because as soon as you see the loop, everyone gets their debt taken off in the system, in the national registry.
So it's more like accounting
It's an
between
account.
groups. If you were in a company, each group would transact on the books
Yep.
without exchanging money.
It's an accounting technology.
Oh. Okay. I gotta wrap my head around this one.
Yeah,
But you're still, sorry, you're still using the dollar value I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
So we still have
Denominated
Slovenia's dollar is worth this,
euro. Yeah.
but you're not, it's a dollarless thing, but it's still a value based on that value. I'm just trying to.
It's a euro-less account settling, but everything is still euro-based, everything expressed in euros. There's no cryptos, there's nothing like that, right?
If you had a really fluid banking system, like a little bit better in Europe, you would be able to do that much better. Here in Canada, our banking system's very, a lot of friction.
That is true. They're a little more further ahead with open banking and all that. So basically, the circular economy, going back to the idea of the circular economy, where this falls in is Social Cogs, which is the nonprofit I'm part of, which is partnering with REAP to do this. We've been trying for maybe half a decade to go to the end state where we're talking about these like additional beyond money capacity and all of that. And it's that's a difficult game because it's eyebrow raising, there's a lot of doubts and stuff. So that's why we're pushing all of that into like a stage 2, and we're not even looking at it. This presentation is, even though personally, that's what I'm passionate about. I would love to talk to you about that. We're actually keeping all of that off the table, and we're focusing on a stage 1, which is analytics only, which is essentially only providing, and I'll show you what that is.
Can I just ask one question,
Yes.
really building on Jody's, on your Slovenia example? So if they remained Eurocentric and somebody didn't have cash, it would stall the cascade of follow-on transactions in the supply chain.
Exactly.
But if you don't, if everybody trusts that, yeah, I'm gonna get paid, the money keeps circulating, so the economy keeps moving, so it registers as revenue on my books, and I have a pipeline coming my way, and it's not gonna get stalled because the economy is stalling.
That's exactly it, but I would just clarify something there is that it's not about trust. They're already trusting each other because when they give an invoice, it's net 30. So the trust is all the same, nothing changes there. The only reason why they're able to do this is because they have mapped out their network of supply and demand. They have mapped out the network of obligations of economic relationships.
And they see that no one's gonna be left holding a hot potato with no seat to sit in.
Well, that's what I'm still trying to your point. So somebody has to, I'm going to use $100. Somebody has to have $100 in the banks, Slovenia, and they're going to go through this. And at the end of the day, if all of us totals $50 is going to come out of the bank at some point.
So one thing maybe that I didn't make clear is that the reason why they don't need to do that is because the settling happens in an instant. So imagine, let's take this simpler example with only 4. If we were to know this in a regional economy and we knew that these people transacted in the past 30 days and everybody has invoices due to each other, and let's say the first invoice is $1,000, the second one is $500, the third one is $300, and the next one is $400. The common denominator there, the minimum, is the $300. That's what you can clear. And when you clear the $300, you do it instantaneous on everyone's books. Nobody waits for anyone. It's a millisecond thing, and all of a sudden, the person that owed 1,000 owes 700, the person that owed 300 owes nothing, the person that owes 500 owes 200. So it's an instantaneous accounting setup.
And it's blockchain based, so.
No blockchain, no cryptos. This is all very conventional. Yeah, this system is running for 30 years.
But at some point, if there's the $300, somebody has it in a bank and it's going to come out eventually. Sorry, I'm sometimes my brain doesn't.
I would love to go into, and maybe if I can just.
Okay, we can go offline.
To have a coffee.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, that is actually what I'm passionate about. I was gonna, if I can just finish up.
Yes,
with
yes,
the
sorry,
Focus
sorry.
on the circular economy, and then we can, if we have time, I would love to. Get to that point.
Premised heavily on trust.
But it's still, but that's the point. It's still based in the foundational bank. That's, I'm still.
It's a closed system without a bank, so the money is there already in somebody else's account.
But it sounds to me, anyway, okay, I'm gonna stop.
I'm totally gonna, I will be following up with you on that for sure. Okay, so, yeah, you see, this is actually the issue of why stage 2 is really difficult, right? Which is why this is a perfect example, which is why focusing on, so I'm gonna not even gonna go into any of this, focusing on stage one. If we were, so no transactions, nothing like Slovenia is doing, simply mapping out business interest of individuals and businesses. What do they want from the economy? What they're offering. And if we map those out and put them in a system together, then we can just produce analysis, no transactions, just analysis. That analysis could be to empower circular economy projects from pen and paper to big data computing, to provide reports for how sustainable are businesses within their region. Perhaps maybe to serve as to simulate impact. So let's say an industry shutting down or a big company shutting down somewhere in the region. What does that mean beyond the salaries of the employees? Like how does it affect cascade? If we had the network, we could actually simulate that.
The effect of Catalyst paper mill closing on Powell River and its surrounding business. Yeah.
So how do we do this? And I'm getting towards the end. I know I'm short on time. Essentially, using REAPs. The idea would be using REAPs on the ground reach. Let's say Gabriola Community Chamber of Commerce. They go out to their business members. On Bowen, perhaps, if the committee is, interested in this, we work out a plan for our constituents. So everybody kind of distributed to the local communities. The point is to collect information of for every individual, not every, as many as people want to participate. What do they want from the economy? And it doesn't have to be very explicit. They don't have to list like product numbers or anything like that. It can just be a paragraph of text. I would like to see this from my local economy, few sentences. And then on the other end, what would they like to offer? I'm currently offering this to the economy, but I would also like to offer this in the future. And I'm not, I need this to make it happen. If we collect that per instance, per individual, per business, then we use this modern type of graph database, which we have experience with, and we make the connections. And then we can see things like this, for example, Rani connected to a home farm, connected to a farm worker, connected to landlord, connected to many other nodes, somehow. And that's when we start to light up the network. So maybe I'll just end there. And so to summarize, this is an idea for an analytic toolkit that can be surfaced for community use for any project that cares about resilience or sustainability or circular economy to use this toolkit for their objectives.
I'd add to that it teaches people who are participating in this how to think systemically.
Absolutely.
And when we think systemically, we recognize the impacts and cascades we have on others, and that raises awareness everywhere, which is super important to get any change in behavior.
Like I know local BC chambers and stuff, they've been this committee has been contributing to this local BC support local. So they've done a lot of research that shows those relational and the dollar value. If you shop at the Ready, how much money stays in the community and stuff. And so that's been on. Are you guys tapping into all that research already and building on that?
Amy, she's on our working group.
Okay. Oh, Amy Robinson.
Yep.
Can I just show these guys a poster of, can I knock you out here for a second? This is a really simpler version, or just what these local BC is doing. So they have, and we piggyback on this campaign because we're partners. Is it anywhere? So like those kinds of that kind of information of if you purchase something locally, what the percentage of money is going to go to members of the community. And then this poster, like we did a campaign here, which the best one is like Ready. So that Ready potato there, and then it would have home farm gardens and it's just a much simpler version than what you're doing. But we did hand out the posters to businesses here. Do you feel when we put up on there?
I remember seeing those.
You remember that?
Actually,
So just a little like layer when you're saying to get people to start thinking that way.
How long have we been a partner? I know, I think it started when Robin was on the committee. Curious, because this is one of the things I wanted to bring up in my conversation today.
Okay, maybe
It's been a few years.
5 years.
It's before I was on the committee.
2000.
I love.
Janet's really run with it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to ask a question about that.
Well, yes, so it used to happen, a lot of ideas what by local happened at this table, and then the communications team got jazzed about it, so it's sort of left it, but if you guys want to re-engage, and it sounds like you do. And so,
Thank you so much, Martin. I think this has been really great just to show us this macroeconomic vision. I think we all know, we know firsthand the buy local campaigns. We also know, how to create a lot of this economic resilience. But it's really interesting what REAP's doing as a regional economy, with other rural islands. So it's not just Bowen Island, it's other rural islands. And then how can we work together? Where are those synergies? It's a really interesting direction. And that was a really great presentation. So thanks so much. Before we move on, are there any more questions for Martin?
You asked if we're going to take action to invite participants in that data analysis collection. Is that happening? Is that going forward? How does that happen?
I can show you an idea that currently is we could reshape this together. So how do we incentivize, let's say, an individual or a business to, or what's their incentive to participate in this? Sorry. So this is potential incentive or value to an individual or a business view. So let's say you are an agri-tech farm on Quadro Island and you're considering opening up a tourism restaurant, a tour operation, but you want to know what would be the local demand, if people would come, how often, how much they would spend. So if we had information, we would only for them, we would not information only for them, but if we were to, let's say, have a campaign where we invite individuals and businesses to fill out those two paragraphs of supply and demand, we put that all in a database system, this graph database system, and then we expose this interface for the public. And you come to this interface as a business and you're like, now I want to plan a new product. You do a little search, you click on demand analysis, it gives you can imagine maybe hundreds of points here. And then you can chat with it. So you can be like, okay, tell me, what about dairy, non-dairy? What if I have a tour, don't have a tour? What about vineyards? It's using, we actually have a prototype, generative AI, like ChatGPT. So that would be the incentive. There's two parts. One, to invite constituents to contribute data, and two, to kind of offer something back, something like this for them to help them in their business.
I think it's excellent. I wonder about the mechanism by which you're gonna step forward and start asking people in these coastal communities to enter their data.
Yes, basically the question is, how do we ask this question?
Yeah, and who's leading that?
To actually put pen to paper and fill in the data.
You're waiting on funding too to move this stage forward. Is that correct?
We have a couple of applications, yes.
I think a big challenge will also be overcoming the competitiveness of it, in the sense that why would I share this to increase access to the market that I'm trying to build?
Yeah, so sort of that line between cooperation amongst businesses versus competition amongst businesses.
And I think we all know that coming at it from the cooperative approach actually
Helps in the end.
helps, but
Bigger pie.
it's tough. I'm not sure if you've come up against that, but it might be
Actually, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That point is why we realized exactly why you said that we would not expose this to any user. This would be very proprietary, viewable only by like REAP certified people that the community trusts, because this is where you can see where people buy their stuff from. That's proprietary business,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So that is a big question there.
Well, there's so much interesting work going on, and I think there's a lot of vision coming from REAP and a lot of great work being done from lots of individuals. So thank you, Martin, representing Bowen Island, as our contact and driving a lot of these initiatives. It's very exciting. Thank you. Okay, so
At some point, my analog brain needs to catch up.
yeah, me too. I've got lots of questions for Martin, but
Yeah,
maybe,
layers of an onion.
maybe that could be, I'm always a fan of.
Have a beer or something.
Exactly. It's like, we'll unpack it a little bit more at the Bowen Island Pub. Okay, subcommittee reports. So Lorraine, just to share with you that a couple of years ago, we worked on a strategic plan, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It is available through on the website. But just very generally speaking, it was a fairly broad strategic report. There are lots of ideas, based on a consultation that an agency did on our behalf. And sort of the conclusion that we came to was we're going to sort of pick out maybe the higher priority items from the strategic report and sort of encouraging members of the committee, what inspires you, what interests you from this report to maybe then set up a subcommittee to do a bit of a deep dive into this initiative. So, from that, since January, when we had our orientation session, various subcommittees have been set up. There's still room for other subcommittees to be set up. And I think they're all at different stages of being set up and then having meetings and getting a little bit of traction. And, recognizing that we're all busy, and I think we all spoke about different subcommittees as well. But there are some that have been set up that we just thought we would always sort of have an update on these subcommittee initiatives and moving forward. And of course, you're welcome to either join a subcommittee or looking at the strategic plan if there's something that really interests you to step in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else, Steph?
Did I provide you with a plan with the draft?
I remember contributing to the survey of it, and probably looking at it when it came out, but that was a while back.
So I think that was sort of our last meeting, is that we did spend quite a bit of time just talking about, what are some of the priorities, what are some pressing issues, what are the things that we want to look at. And again, the idea with the subcommittee is that it would be a group, both those members within the CEDC, as well as maybe collaborating with other Bowen Island committees, as well as maybe collaborating with, subject matter experts on the island. And after doing an exploration and looking at a specific issue, then really report out to council at the end. Cool. Generally speaking.
And the end being what, 3 months, 6 months?
I think it's all kind of staggered a little bit. But, for example, the Digital Bowen Island app working group, and I know Martin, you and I have been part of that committee, and Councillor Jurgensen is our chair. He's not here today, but I don't know, Martin, can I put you on the spot to provide just a quick update on, we did have a meeting a few weeks ago.
Yeah, sure. I also have his email summarizing, but maybe I'll try just impromptu. We met and there was Thomas, I forget.
Thomas Fraser.
Who actually develops the Bowen ferry app.
Oh, right.
Was there as well, interested in the bigger picture of a digital app possibilities. And we discussed we did discuss the camera idea a bit, or the cameras, which I think Thomas also had.
The webcam to show the ferry lineup.
Ferry lineup, yeah.
Liam, you brought that up.
And moving on.
Yeah.
But really more generally, we talked about the the importance of keeping the data in common source about the potential issue of, let's say, an app developer ending up with proprietary access to a database of community, economic information. So we talked about the idea of what if we, from the beginning, try to make that sort of like a design specification, invite multiple developers, come in, build an app for this device, that device, web portal, integrate with any other platform, but making sure that we keep an open, not open source, but open data aspect to something like this. I think that was the main topic.
Yeah, I think, through our discussion, we realized that the app is really maybe 2 or 3 different projects. One is being, where do we gather this data? How do we hold this data? And to your point, wanting to make sure that it is, what aspect is public, which asset is private. And really, I think what we said is we want to hold a lot of that information here in community on Bowen Island. And then, of course, it's what information would either residents of Bowen Island or tourists on Bowen Island want to have access to. So, I think we have a number of action items. I think we're hoping to meet again in a couple of weeks and further move along with it. But we've had one meeting and I think our hope is to continue on with this investigation. Again, the idea being maybe a Bowen Island app is a great idea. Maybe it's not. What would we really need to do? What would be the business model? So that's sort of the discussion that's taking place right now. And anyways, thank you, Martin, for the update. That's great.
It's a subscription to the camera for the ferry and the one that tracks the garbage man, so you know if you've missed it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the most in-demand things will make people want to use the app.
Yeah. Well, considering my son is one of the garbage men.
Yeah,
Picking up the garbage. I'll tell him that he needs to wear a GoPro from now on. That's he's doing.
We're just on the truck, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What was the first one you said, Roger?
The trucker and the bus too would be,
The one
I
that
don't know why
camera
we
to
don't.
the ferry.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what we're doing is we're kind of looking at the business model. So there has to be maybe a revenue, where's the revenue coming from to make it sustainable? So these are services that would be of interest to residents. And then, of course, there's services that would be more interest to tourists. So let's see what we can fit together. Any other questions before we move on to this one? Okay. The Business Summit Working Group, where Jody, Jamie, and I had a chance to sit down. And again, I think the thought was from our last committee meeting is in the past, there have been business summits. This is sort of an event bringing all the businesses together from Bowen Island. Steph has the experience with the business summit. Jody, I think you have too, but I have not ever participated in one. But we do think this is one tangible way the committee can really show value to the business community on Bowen. Yet at the same time, we know we don't have a lot of time if we do want to pull a summit together. So we did have a meeting a couple of weeks ago, just sort of brainstorming a little bit about what this could look like. I don't know, Jody, if you wanted to give a bit of I'm happy to give an update, or if you wanted to jump in.
I responded to your email yesterday. Did you see my comments?
Oh, no, I didn't.
So it was great. You put together a little thing and then I was just providing some initial thought. Having done that meeting, in my email to you, I was thinking, I love the idea of business summit, and I did go to a couple of them. Lorraine, have you gone to any of them? Okay. They were kind of before COVID, and I think Steph, you were involved in, I think maybe the last one when
Most of all.
you had just started, I recall as well. They were held at the lodge, and there was a dinner and there was talk. I remember in particular the one that was talking about economic development as community-based and changing the whole name of this committee to focusing on community kind of first, which I thought was wonderful. And then you sat at tables, you had a dinner and you interacted and all that kind of, so they were really great. So when we met, we were talking about this and trying to figure out what would be our topic, and we came up with some ideas. and going, and I think the ideas are all valid, but then I also have stepped back, and I think it would be really important for us to decide what's our goal of the economic summit and who would be our audience. I know in the past when we did them, I remember, Steph, you were talking about trying to get, metro blasting. What are we going to do to get, because I brought this up in our meeting.
Trades.
How do you get the tradespeople there? Is that what we want to do? And so then I got back to the thing we talked about, doing a survey. And so maybe a first step is a survey, and we ask the local businesses, what's your current issues? What are your current, what do you want? What support do you need? What is your vision? All those kinds of things. And then from there, we can decide what maybe should be the focus of the summit. I mean, I love the idea of circular economics. I think I would love to see that. But maybe we should ask the local community first, what do they want? How would we get them to come to a summit? We want the bums on the seat and we want the feedback. So maybe the first step is a survey. That was what I was thinking,
Yeah.
We have provided in the past is information that people want. So we did get the trades finally, and that was when the building code was changing, the step code. And they wanted to figure out how they're going to navigate that. So they flocked for that. And then we got a chance to talk about their needs and make some research and small steps towards addressing those.
Yeah, so definitely. And I think that was one of our action items too, is that we realized that one of the first things we want to do is figure out a survey, how to get that out to the businesses, just to gather that information in terms of what would they be interested in learning more or connecting. Sort of the purpose of the summit then, of course, is that it's an opportunity to network. It's an opportunity to raise awareness of other businesses on the island. But Jody, to your point too, it's like giving space to really provide the information or the interaction that the business community is really looking for. We did talk about, just from a logistics point of view, maybe looking at it the first week in November. And we did talk, just socializing the idea of just having a keynote speaker that would speak about the circular economy, which I do think it would be relevant, just generally speaking. It's a bit more macroeconomic. It is a little bit more broad, but what is certainly being more topical. The district of Squamish, the city of Nanaimo, a lot of the coastal communities are looking closely at that donut economy. And so I think as a keynote speaker, that could just be very interesting for the business community. But then to do a deep dive into what does the business community really want to learn, or what do they want to speak about, having an interactive component. And to your point, Jody, like doing that survey to understand what that is, and either organizing a dialogue around it or a subject matter expert around it is certainly a great idea.
I think a survey would be a good first step. I love the idea, and I would love to see a summit.
Yeah.
But I think we should ask the community what they want.
Yeah.
What they need.
So this that I had put together was it was a 2-page one. Is just a draft agenda, like what could it look like, and then also kind of an action item. And I think I did add that to kind of put together a survey and try to get it out at the beginning of May. As sort of an idea that we sort of just added in there. So that's kind of where we are today. And I think our next meeting probably is to talk about that survey and next. Islam?
Just a quick comment about the circular economy piece too. It is identified as a priority by council to be a foundational element of the OCP review. And so in the terms of reference for the OCP steering committee, they expressly are requesting that circular economy is explored and considered in that OCP work.
As well as the UN
Sustainability goals,
right?
Yeah. And other elements too.
And I think that's maybe here, I'm just making a note here, like the OCP, when we spoke about this our last committee meeting too, like what are businesses looking for, even from a land use component, industrial lands, commercial lands, like I can see how that could probably be a theme for the business summit as well, just synchronizing it with the OCP, also regionally, macroeconomics of circular economy. There could be quite a bit there.
So a lot of these things sort of map together. I think a little bit of drawing that tree out of what we're doing and how those things fit together.
Yeah, well, and maybe that could be part of the survey too, like here's the context, here's where things are going.
We could touch not just on doing one activity, but a
Yeah.
broader
Yeah.
survey of possible. We have all the business licenses, so we have a list, except for, of course, trades is the hardest one to get in there. Do we have anything that's a replacement for yellow pages? You used to have for external exposure, a yellow pages, you went there, you're a Roto-Rooter, you looked it up.
Yeah, we do have the Bowen phone book, yeah.
Does it have all the trades in it?
Yeah, well,
I think it's a choice thing, right?
No, yeah, you have to ask to be listed in that. The other thing to bring up about the trades, though, would we want to, my understanding is a lot of the trades are off-island businesses too. Are we going, do we want to bring?
How far away?
Well, I don't know. I'm just posing that question.
It depends who the audience is that's reading it, right?
And if we're working in a circular economy, why would we limit to the
Yeah, exactly. And we're talking about the connection thing.
so I don't know, I'm just putting that out there.
Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead while I share.
I have the same thing up on my screen.
Oh, okay, I'll do
We
it.
have a business search tool on our website. So anybody that has a license that we are aware of is in that tool.
So I just went to the magnifying glass here and typed in business search.
That our search tool on our website got approved last year. It's way better. It used to be pretty poor.
So you click through there.
Does that require trades that come on island to have a license?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so if you're an electrician, you come in from North Van, you still need a license to work.
Fresh.
I can't say that they all do that.
Yeah, do they
but-
know that?
Yeah, they do. It's so just a quick note on bylaws, like we're not very strong on going out and seeking infractions, but in business licensing, it is something that we are a little more strict about, and we really do try to make sure that people are following the business license.
Does Bowen go through Safety BC or through the Vancouver certifications?
Safety BC.
Safety BC,
Yeah.
So just you take a look, we typed in electric and we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and more. So it's super easy.
It is better, the search, but sometimes
You can also go to the community economic development page and there's a big button at the top of that page.
sometimes to find, I am looking specifically, it takes me a few searches to get that business.
Oh, right. Oh, sorry. And what I was saying is like the search function on our website has been greatly improved.
Yes.
The actual, I'm not so sure, I don't really use the municipal business search tool myself.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yes.
So that's tags.
Oh, I see. The internal one that's improved, not the external necessarily.
I don't see the electrician that I just contacted.
I know, that's what I'm just saying. I have often had to do multiple to try to find.
You can look them up on Safety BC as well.
Well, I do know someone who doesn't have, well, no, yes, business license would have to be on there, wouldn't it?
Anyways,
Okay.
yeah, just sort of aware of time, just to say that, I agree with you, Jody, like that is probably the next step is to do that survey and to reach out to the business community and gather that information. And I think our next meeting tentatively is set for April 3rd, so.
And just to clarify, Steph, I think there's a previous survey that we could just update. Is that correct? Like, I thought you said that at the last meeting or something. The business survey.
Let's talk about it at the group.
Okay, all right, okay.
Thank you.
So if there aren't any more questions, just moving on to the newcomers guide working group.
Okay, so I can have that up. There's been no meeting. I've been very busy on enjoying holidays. But Jamie has read it and provided comments, and her comments were basically, she feels like it's done. But a community center update is required, and we do have an artist, Ron Woodall, that we're trying to get work from. But I do think it's important that our new people, because she's not super new. So Roger and Brian are the new ones that like get that fresh eye. So maybe after this meeting, we can really, perfect. Yeah, that's.
I haven't had time to go through it, but I did notice that there's some things that I think should be.
Okay, good. So after
I'll do
this,
it a little bit more formally, but I haven't done anything formal.
Okay. Thanks, Steph. Then are there any other reports, updates, any next steps to discuss?
Shared workspace, did you want to, or do you want me to talk about that?
Sure, you could go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so because that was one of the initiatives that you had worked on.
Mhm.
And then just a couple of weeks ago, just so people know, in Village Square on the lower level where the former place, health center, whatever, Bowen Health and Life Labs, there is a shared workspace going in there called the Gully.
Nice.
So yeah, because I walk my dog by there all the time. So I saw it. So that's a resolution to the work that you kind of did, that it had to be sort of a,
Yes,
yeah.
we made that place happen with our
Private
minds.
responsibility or municipal?
It's private, but yeah, I look forward to following up with them and finding out if we had a role.
Now we did all the work.
I see.
Sorry, she didn't know anything about it.
It is kind of consistent with what we discovered because the Sunshine Coast Economic Development Committee, they actually did look at a remote workspace and it is subsidized by local government. But after, learning more about, and actually they have 3 different locations. And then we hosted a number of dialogues around it. But what we concluded is that really for it to be a viable business, it would have to be one that's privately owned and operated and not supported by public funds. So it's great. It's great. I think, definitely there was, it's an interesting transition right now in terms of how we're all working. Are we working in the office? Are we working remotely completely? Are we a hybrid worker? How does this all work out? And so because things haven't necessarily landed necessarily in a very consistent way, and because Bowen Island is such a beautiful place to work remotely if you can, it would really have to be based on a business opportunity that somebody identifies.
And somebody serendipitously just stepped into the void?
We don't know if it was only serendipitous with
Still let it grab a little bit of.
there was a lot of communication and engagement. So,
Well, as long as they have a
Pretty
backup
certain.
generator, they'll do well.
Yeah.
So I would recommend people talking to her, have a conversation. She's a young mom, so she's one of these people struggling with.
Trying to do some work, well, also,
You can come and talk to us.
and I was suggesting people could stop in, and she wants to know what people want.
Is
She's
it open now?
Actually,
She's
the opening
opening
the report.
She's got a couple, I don't know when the timeline is, but she's got a couple workspaces. She has, gonna have 1 or 2 sound cubicles, so if you actually wanted a place where you're gonna have a Zoom meeting and conversation. She's gonna offer some printing, and she says, yes, we're gonna do some kind of printing, and so she's just starting. She has to start small, but she certainly would welcome what will people use and all that kind of stuff. And I said, well, are you going to have access, like key access go in after hours? And so those are all things that she's looking at and wants to have sort of.
Yeah, we will unearth the report.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's our motivation to unearth the report and finalize it. Yeah. Okay,
Her name is Alex.
well, thanks, Jody. Thanks for sharing.
In the bathroom, you wrote that one?
Yes, to your left, through that door, to your left.
Well, just moving on, I know Wendy has been patiently joining our meeting here and appreciate you having the time for us, Wendy. And I love the fact that, you're calling in from Jedi, reporting in from Jedi. That's certainly the best ministry acronym that's out there. Is there any updates from the province that you'd like to share with the committee?
Thank you, first of all, and it's just wonderful to be able to get updates from the various topics that were being discussed today. There's two things that I wanted to maybe provide a bit of information where hopefully it will help some of your committee's work. One is on the circular economy. And I know that was being discussed potentially as part of your, business economic summit that you had spoke about earlier, and looking at potential speakers or keynote presentations. I have been working with the District of Squamish on their circular economy economic initiatives, and yes, the whole philosophy around donut economics is strongly embedded in their local economic work. And so one of the maybe what and maybe you may be familiar with these individuals already, but I wanted to just put it on your radar. So one is this individual called Paul Shorthouse. I'm not sure if you're familiar. Perfect. Yeah. So Paul was CELC, who has done work with Squamish and is now heading CLC based out in Victoria. And of course, the other one has done a lot of work on the island. So it's the foundation, Synergy Foundation. You might be familiar with them as well. I can't see folks too well in my little screen here, but let me know if you are familiar with Synergy Foundation and with Georgia in particular.
No, I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with Paul Shorthouse, although I thought he was based in Ottawa.
Oh,
is he not based in? Because I think the organization, the circular economy, is based in Ottawa.
The national, so he started this organization called Circular Economy Leadership Council, and I believe
that's right.
National focus. But a couple of years ago, I thought he's based. I thought he's a BC person. Yeah. I thought so, but I would have to double check on that. No, he may have moved to Ottawa, but I don't know if he has moved. And then the other organization I was referring to is that's called Synergy Foundation.
Okay.
They've done a lot of work on circular economy initiatives, primarily on the island, but they're also branching out into northern BC as well as into the Kootenays. So I just wanted to put it on your radar. The other item that I thought was really interesting, and I'd like to thank Martin for your presentation on community economic mapping. Especially as it relates to REAP's work, and I believe it sounds like you have been, working closely with Francine at REAP. And one of the things that I think it touches on is trying to figure out, at the end of the day, what is the potential, aggregated economic, impact or economic flows based on, REAP's, what I call REAP service areas, which are all the islands in the islands trust areas, and so that's something I find it's quite novel. I don't know if there's been a lot of data on that front, but if I understand what Martin's trying to do, and looking at the existing example of what Loco has been doing on Bowen itself. It makes me think of is there a way to look at these economic flows, be it visitor flows, retail flows, trade flows between these islands, and try and quantify what is the economic value that these islands contribute to BC's economy. So I thought that was a very interesting way of looking at it, and I just wanted to comment. I think that's my take on today's meeting, and let me know if there are any other things on your side that you'd like information from the province. I know there is and I think an event taking place next week on climate change and economic disruptions potentially with REAP, and I know my colleague will be presenting at that, so I think that would be a very interesting event as well. I see Mayor Leonard has raised.
Mayor Leonard, do you have any questions for Wendy?
I do. Well, not a question, more of a comment, and just something that I'm putting into everybody's ear at the province that I can get a hold of. Just going back to a meeting we had with your minister at UBCM, there's been discussion on Bowen about the potential of being included at some point in the Islands Coastal Economic Trust, as we are not a member, and generally we find ourselves excluded from some funding streams because we're quote unquote a part of Metro Vancouver, but being small in Metro Vancouver, we often don't get access to the funding streams that they have, that we see other islands have access to. So I just wanted to put that in your ear at the staff level, that those are conversations that we are having and will continue to have, and will continue to press, and any support that we can get at the staff level for inclusion in that economic trust would be most helpful.
Yes, thank you for flagging that for me. And that is indeed something that has been raised at various points throughout, throughout the times where there is value indeed for Bowen to be part of an economic trust. And we do see that there is an absence of that. So thank you for flagging that, and I will be sure to monitor that situation and see if anything is required from our side. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Maybe unless there's any other questions from other committee members, I just maybe have one comment to make as well. Just, so often when we think about the circular economy, some of the barriers with the circular economy quite often is, what infrastructure do you have? What infrastructure do you have to then manage, particularly around utilities, particularly around, very foundational infrastructure upgrades and expansions that are needed in particularly small rural communities. So, having access to those programs, to that funding, I think would be particularly important for Bowen Island in support of a circular economy for our local businesses to really participate with the circular economy. Anyways, if there's any other questions or comments?
I've just put in the link to Synergy Foundations and their work on Project Zero and BC Green Business. And so, yeah, something for your committee to.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I may, I've got a little bit of a story that I share with my provincial colleagues, and the mayor's heard it numerous times, but I think, Wendy, you'd benefit from hearing it because, having come from the province to the local government side, it's been really interesting for me to see the specific challenges that Bowen Island in particular are facing. And so in my role at the province, I used to be responsible for one of many things is called the Improvement District Dissolution Policy. And basically the province has an internal initiative to dissolve improvement districts. And when I took over that responsibility at that time, there were about 220 improvement districts still in the province, and we'd whittled it down to about 150 by the time I left. And they're continuing to try to whittle them down. Improvement districts aren't necessarily a bad thing, but they are generally more challenged at providing services to communities. And so Bowen Island, when it incorporated, it dissolved 7 improvement districts, which are water systems and our primary municipal water systems on the island. And part of the provincial policy, though, is that when a local government dissolves improvement districts and takes them over, my branch at the province would provide funding to ensure that those systems came up to meet the provincial drinking water quality guidelines and standards. However, when Bowen incorporated, nobody was really requesting that funding or making any sort of claims for that support. And the province at that time didn't openly sort of share that there was that opportunity for additional funding available to the community. And so Bowen went forward and incorporated and took over these water systems that really were kind of in a cottage infrastructure state that desperately need to be brought up to the provincial regulatory standards, which we've been doing a really good job at. And we have been getting provincial support, but mostly on a one-off basis. And so when I heard Kristen just saying, like, we need to think about the infrastructures to support the, community and economic development opportunities, I really think about, well, what are the core foundational infrastructure elements to help a community be sustainable and be able to grow? And water is the first and foremost a service that any community needs, followed by wastewater and stormwater, and even preceding that, any of those is just physical access roads and the like. And so, Wendy, when we meet ministers at UBCM, I give them this little spiel about how Bowen incorporated, but missed out on this opportunity. And so any support that we can receive from the province to help bring our core services up to the provincial standards, we are very grateful for that. And, you know, we have been supported in this sort of ad hoc one-off basis, but we are trying to come at it from a more comprehensive view, just bring all the systems up to an equal standard at the same time. Because without being able to provide that base level of service, there's no opportunity for us to really achieve the density that we want, where we need that density, and or to even grow the business community in the way that we would like to see that grow. So just thought I'd put that little plug in there too.
Okay, well, thank you, Liam. Any other questions for Wendy? Okay, well, listen, thank you so much, Wendy, for once again joining our meeting. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Wendy. I'm just aware of time, that we're sort of close to being at time. I know still on the agenda, you know, to briefly talk about REAP, but also, Jody, you had mentioned there's an update with Tourism Bowen Island. I know we did spend some time talking about REAP, but maybe Martin, just very briefly, so we could then move over to Jody, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, I would just quickly say that there's the Connection Cafe happening on March 27th at 6:30 p.m. With the topic being climate resilience, as requested by the province, actually. So.
And can anybody sort of join that meeting?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I see that there's the link here right in the agenda.
Yeah, I put it on Facebook. I don't know. I'll try to send out to our members and stuff like that. You know, everybody's. Oh, no, it'd be great to go, but I'm just saying people are so busy, and yeah, you put the net out there and see who you try to capture in different ways.
Do you need ideas from us?
Do you need any feedback from?
Not explicitly, but we'll be happy to take any of it.
Okay. So this could even be like, if, you know, even if you can join next week, that's great. You have some ideas, maybe email Martin and because Martin, you are participating. Yeah. So if you do have any ideas or items, maybe email Martin. So then those ideas and comments can be represented. Thank you. Any other questions for Martin? All right, Jody, got the floor.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. I just realized after the last meeting that I sometimes don't do a good job in saying who Tourism Bowen Island is and what we do. And so I just thought, I should just share a little bit of what we've done. Lorraine, you weren't here, but a couple of months ago, we did have a meeting, and I was saying that Tourism Bowen Island came out of this committee. It was identified a few years ago as one of two community economic development initiatives. The other one was construction. And so that's what we do. You have these, okay. I just want to make sure that
I don't know.
I know, exactly.
It's so good.
So we are,
That's a great
because we don't have a Chamber of Commerce that hold it, right? We do frontline community economic development, and we do visitor management. I've seen you do it. You've seen it. Yeah. And I do want to invite people to come to the visitor center. A lot of people don't know what we do, and I know Melanie Mason. When she didn't win being the mayor, she worked for me for a month, and she said, "Oh, I didn't realize what you do." Because we try to capture people and make sure that they're visiting responsibly. So we are a small nonprofit. We're grant-based. So, for instance, this publication was during COVID. We had I've been able to work there because of COVID funding, but that's ended now. And so these publications, like this one was a support local, that was code-based, our funding that we were using for this, that has now ended and stuff like that. So moving forward, things are going to be a little bit trickier. We had some COVID funding this past fall. We didn't have a meeting. We did a Bowen Food Fest. We did, whenever we do things, we advertise in the undercurrent, we write articles, we do advertising. It's all very conscious about supporting local businesses, but also being responsible in the sense that we never encourage people to come during the summer, but if they're coming, we manage them and we do off season to build the resilient year-round economy, support the businesses here. At the visitor center, we create things like, update how to, one of the key things, when I send an email to somebody, I'm telling them, here's the link, this is how you line up your car. These are all the resources. Obviously, fire is a huge issue. So we try to, when we have people, we try to, whatever channel we're interacting, make sure that they get the resources that they need and information. We're part, behind the scenes, we work on campaigns, as you mentioned the other day, they don't love it to death. You will see a few of these signs that have just now been installed this past week on Island, encouraging people to be conscious of their impact and things like that. So, our organization is always trying to do these things, but first and foremost, in the community, supporting community economic development and also responsible tourism. We have a plan, a tourism plan that has just finally, after a long time, been released. It will be going to, we'll be doing a council presentation on April 8th. It's a strategy, really. It's got like over 50 initiatives that we could work on. Once again, it's kind of aspirational in the sense, but it's a framework that hopefully can benefit the community and help inform planning and things like that. So that was a little bit more in-depth overview. And I also just wanted to, and this sort of came from the last meeting, and like I said, I apologize, sometimes I come to these meetings not fully prepared or thinking through. And we had the budget discussion, which I noticed the budget has gone down to 12,000. It used to be 15,000 a couple of years ago. But I noticed the support local campaign, which I absolutely love, but it's a significant amount of our budget. And after that, I was thinking, it's kind of ironic that we're spending that amount of money on organizations that actually, they're supporting local, I guess, but they're really sort of off island. And I know, sorry?
A lot of that goes to the Bowen undercurrent.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that, because I didn't realize that. But I just want to, I think we should be, and we've been doing that for a few years, I think we should be cognizant, because this past December, one of our members, and she had forgotten that we had done this, she took it on herself to run a support local weekend. And I said to her, well, you're aware that the municipality does this? And she goes, no, I wasn't aware. So I think we want to maybe look at what we've been doing, and we always have to evaluate, what are we doing, what are we doing, and just be cognizant, is it actually having an impact? Like, I love the undercurrent. We always support, when we have the money, we support them as well. But I don't know how many people read the undercurrent, or like, for instance, you weren't aware of the phone book. You read the undercurrent, right? The municipality does an excellent job of multi-channel. They do the undercurrent, they do social, but a lot of people don't subscribe to the newsletters or they, so I think we need to, while we're doing these things, sort of look back, what's working, what's not, what can we do better? So I think we want to be aware of that. And I think we need to support local. And like I said, we're doing these, it's going to become a bit difficult moving forward because this COVID funding is gone and stuff like that. So just, and maybe in the survey, once again, determining what's working, what's not, where do people need support and stuff like that. So
I think that's good observation, Judy, just to take that time and reflect, and where are we being most effective and where can we be more effective?
yeah, and even like I said, within our group, some people weren't aware that the municipality has a Facebook page or whatever, so even just those tiny little things
yeah, how to do it more effectively and efficiently.
Well, especially now when we're looking to look at doing an app, is that just one more information source? Would it be effective? Would it not be effective? Yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. What was the name of this person again? This came up last year.
No, we did this. This was COVID funding. We did this. This was in 2020. This was a whole campaign. We applied for a grant through the chamber. And we did this.
I think BC Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, BC Chamber of Commerce. And we did out, I mean, it was a huge undertaking, and we're still handing these out and people still pick them up. But I'm just saying people forget. So Britt at Branch, she forgot about this, but she also was not aware of the Support Local campaign, because they said, oh, are you going to tie in with that? And all of a sudden she's, oh. So once again, communication, people are busy, you know. And I think as a committee, look at what we're doing, what's working and what's not and stuff like that.
Well, thank you, Judy. Are there any questions for Judy?
Do you want to lead the buy local working group is my question, because these are fantastic ideas that to work on. Maybe not the second, but.
Yeah, no, I'm just,
Because
again, I love Support Local, and I love that that she's working with you guys. So I mean, you know, that maybe we look at, maybe we put funding that way, or try to support what's going on. Be aware, how can we support that on island? Especially if it's not working or anymore or something like that.
You kind of think about know local first before you get to buy local.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Next on our agenda, it's the Hearth Arts on Bourne, but Jamie's not here today, so maybe we'll just leave that to next committee meeting. Next agenda item, council update. And Leonard, I don't know if I could put you on the spot, maybe just to.
Sure. Lots of things going on with council. I think probably the most relevant for this committee, as I hear what's been discussed today, is really the OCP review or rewrite or evolution that's coming forward. As you have heard, council did make the explicit direction that any OCP revisions or rewrites that do come forward explicitly need to take into account the framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, reconciliation as under UNDRIP and BC's DRIPA legislation, and circular economies. And the circular economies piece certainly has arisen out of conversations that this committee has had, both donut economics and other models and other wider methodologies as well. So that will be something that you'll see in the future. I believe that council will be making some determinations on the composition of the committee come April 8th. Also upcoming on Monday will be the discussion, the council decision rather, on short-term rentals and whether to opt into the province's legislation on principal residence requirements, as well as allowing the province to give us potentially some help in enforcement and data collection of short-term rentals. I know that this committee has made a recommendation, the Housing Advisory Committee has made a recommendation, and those will be discussed at the council meeting on Monday as well. Apart from that, I'm happy to take any questions, but that, you know, just for the sake of time, I think those seem like the most relevant pieces.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions from the committee? None. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And any staff updates, Liam, if I can ask you if there's anything further to add?
The only thing I just sort of follow on the mayor's comments is that there is a lot of activity in the planning department. The OCP is probably the largest planning initiative right now, but there's a lot of other significant work that's being done in and around housing and other land use policies that really occupy our planners, our very small planning team's time. And it does it feels like there's a really significant intersection of all this work with the OC planning. And then aside from that, you know, you're all probably seeing the persistent blue roof on our community center. And I just want to take this opportunity while I have some folks I don't generally speak with often to give you a brief update about that. So the more people that understand why we're continuing to look at a blue roof many months after first went up is a good opportunity to me. So essentially, I'm going to start with nobody's more frustrated about it than I am and the mayor is perhaps. But while it's been an incredibly long delay, we are confident and reassured by our constructor and our architect that when the roof does go on, it will be done in accordance with all of the manufacturer's requirements and assurances that the condition of the materials is adequate and that it will be done properly and that the warranties will be fully intact and not compromised. So that makes me happy. But the delay is really due to the subcontractor that's doing the roofing component moving ahead quickly prior to having finalized some of the decisions around the roof, the actual metal roofing profile that needed to be made. And then when we were presented with the materials to make that decision, it was done in a rather poor way and it wasn't coordinated well. And so it actually took several months to just get that decision made about what the actual metal profile would be that goes on the roof. And then by that time, the exposure of the material had been such that there needed to be a deeper investigation into whether or not there were compromises that had been had occurred. And so there's, in my view, an inordinate amount of communication back and forth about A, the material that's going on, and then B, what are the resolutions to address the concerns around the length of exposure of those materials. We did just recently get some of the assurances from the manufacturers of those materials that they are okay. And then we did just this last weekend, the workers were on the roof all weekend, essentially doing investigations, pulling some of the insulation from underneath to ensure that it is dry, reinstalling and reapplying the membrane. And we had the roofing crew on site ready to start installing the metal roofing. The forming machine itself broke, and so they're having to get that repaired. And so I don't think we're going to get it on before the rains are supposed to start. So we may see actual tarping material go up over all of that rework that was just done to protect it before they can get the metal on. So the roof needs to go on before the siding can be finished. And so there is a sequencing there between roofing, gutters, siding. And so that's why we're continuing to look at that blue roof. But I can say that the inside of the building is looking amazing and it's coming along fantastically and it's pretty exciting on the inside. It's just really unfortunate that everybody has to sit in that lineup, that ferry line, and look at that. And
nobody will notice the tarps.
yeah, no.
There won't be any comments.
Nothing, yeah. That'll be fine. Yeah, we are getting closer. Currently, they're talking about, a June handover date. There's still a lot of work to be done, so we'll see how that unfolds.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, if only, maybe we should put a notice on BC Ferries, just a status update, so for those who are up on the ferry, they can know after sitting in the lineup what's going on.
A big status sign.
Yeah.
In graffiti spray paint, status sign.
Camera will point you right.
Yes.
I'm getting the hook from next week, or
Yes, okay, well, what
just a
maybe,
moment, please.
well, I mean, just looking at the remaining agenda item stuff,
Committees, we know who we are. I think we're just on to our action items.
yeah.
We used to do a critique at the end of these meetings. I thought that was a really productive meeting. Thank you very much for your sharing.
Well, I think our big takeaways is just to continue working with the subcommittees in terms of them moving forward. For the ones that have met, just keep moving around with that momentum. For those who haven't met yet, I know we're all busy, but to focus on that before our next meeting in April. And if there's any other new initiatives, of course, this committee is always open to those ideas at our next meeting in April.
We'll be talking the foyer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Meeting adjourned.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.